All right, welcome to episode 122 of the Zenspath Entertainment Network podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Powers, and joining me once again, it's just the three of us. Rachel is off dealing with Rachel things. Hopefully she is doing well. She should be back with us pretty soon when she gets a chance, but, you know, she's got to do her thing. But with me tonight, we have Chris.
Hello.
And Steven.
Ahoy.
Ahoy, hoy. All right, so, oh man, it's been a interesting week, I think. So we'll go ahead and dive into what we've been up to. And I kind of want to start off because I have been waiting for this for a while, but I got my Retro Tink 4K.
Hooray!
It came in. Good old Mike Chi sent this sucker in. I kid you not. I ordered this last week, and almost 7 days to the hour, it showed up at my house. That's nuts. I've been waiting for this thing for a while. Pretty good size on this thing, though. Of course, I can open it, and there's the old analog connections. And then we've got HDMI and composite, VGA, and other things. Nice. So I'll be using this to do new recordings and stuff and pretty much revamp a lot of that part of the YouTube channel where I was doing openings for games and other stuff that I want to record. But there's also old VHS tapes I've been waiting to record because this does the 332 cine pull down for those that actually understand what that means. When they used to record 24 frame a second movies onto a 60 frame a second VHS tape, they would, every frame would be one of them would be drawn 3 times, then the next one 3 times, the next one 2 times, so that it would even up with the 60 frames per second. And then you would be able to do it. Well, this will fix that because it used to leave a little bit of a judder that would occur. You'd kind of see that little thing. This fixes a lot of that for old VHS content, including home videos and so forth. So I'm hoping with this, I can finally properly preserve all of my old family videos with my late mom, my brother, and things like that. Also can go back and properly record like these old Nintendo commercial tapes they'd send out, like the marketing ones, like from Toys R Us and all of those, because those are hilarious. And kind of go from there. And also some old VHS movies that are just not available anymore, or have like those trailers and bits and pieces that they did for promotional stuff at the time. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. And I'm sure I'm going to get lots of copyright notices for it because YouTube's bad about that, but we'll see. Beyond that, we had one of the friends of our show recommend an album. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a band called Moron Police.
Nope.
Okay, so they had an album called Boat on the Sea that I ended up getting, and thankfully it ended up only being like $5 on Amazon. It was on sale, but it was Rob Jones that recommended it, and you know, he does his podcast talking about music, and there's a whole episode they did about this album, but he wanted me to hear the album first before I heard that. Really interesting and weird one. Give it a listen if you get a chance. It's on Spotify as well, I think. But yeah. Beyond that, are you guys familiar with Stargate? The 1994 sci-fi film?
Just that MacGyver's in it.
Well, he's in the TV show later.
Oh.
He's not in the movie.
I did watch the movie, but I've never seen the TV series.
So I watched the Ultimate Director's Cut. I had gotten a hold of some of the old DVDs and watched it. It still holds up, but one thing I noticed, because, you know, the way movies are now, this was made in 1994. I swear this movie must have been like sponsored by Philip Morris, because almost no matter the conversation, where you're at or what's going on, they're like, I just need to light up and start smoking over and over again. They show up at the guy's house to find, you know, the guy that's all depressed because his son killed himself, you know, shot himself with a gun on accident. The wife's talking, of course, she starts smoking, and then the guy starts smoking, and I'm just like, what the hell? It's just
Smoking was cool back then.
It was, but it's like one of those things you're like, you don't realize how much that used to be prevalent, which is kind of funny. Movie still holds up.
Director's cut for you.
Oh God. Alone in the Dark.
Tara Reid's a scientist.
Wow. So no. I've got a couple really bad ones. I've got a bunch of the Uwe Boll video game movies that he did.
I need to find them. I found some, but I'm looking for Far Cry. There's
I
the hard
did.
one and the first 2 Blood Rains.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't Uwe that did it, but I do have like the House of the Dead one.
I have that. I like that they
That's
put the footage of the game in there. That was weird.
it's still such a bad
The
movie.
hardest one to find right now is the Freddie Prinze Jr. Matthew Lillard Classic Wing Commander. So
I found it.
you
I
found
don't
it for
have that one.
VHS. I don't want it for VHS.
But see, I can convert it now and clean it up for VHS.
I just want everything at least on DVD. So I have a bunch written down. Apparently, there's a Dead Rising movie, a Red Faction movie.
I found those.
So I need to
There's
find
more
them.
than one. There's like 3 of them.
Jeez.
They get remotely worse every time. And the last thing I'll talk about before I eat up this whole beginning, I got back into playing Fallout 4 again because we've got the Fallout series coming out. The trailer looked great to me, and I was like, oh, I want to play it again. So I booted up on my PC, and it runs great. And I was like, I've already played through this, so I'm just gonna finally dive in and say to hell with it and just use cheats everywhere. So I'm running around the very beginning of the game, almost maxed out level and power armor, just blowing everything away, and it's fun. I don't care if I'm cheating. This is like me as a kid with a Game Shark. I'm just getting more fun out of it. So who knows? I have dog meat though. Gotta have my dog. I always love that one. All right, so Chris, what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, since I talked about Vanillaware all that time last session, I actually got Muramasa the Demon Blade Rebirth on Vita.
Ooh.
And I ended up picking up Unicorn Overlord, and they're both a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
They take a lot of time to be decent at, as someone who always presses X to hit thing and not think of anything else. But for that, we have the noise update for Pizza Tower, which is a lot of fun and a very different way of playing, but still just as crazy as the other one. So it's a lot of fun.
What was that update about? Because I heard something about it, but I haven't had a chance to look into it yet.
Essentially, you're playing as the previous protagonist's rival, which is basically like the Noid from Domino's. Same thing,
kind of
he's out to destroy pizzas and things like that. So it's very weird, just as crazily animated. How to put this? It's like picking between Sonic and Knuckles. There's going to be different ways of playing. So it's a lot of fun.
That makes sense.
And aside from that, I've been busy being upset at Atlas again because their recent downloadable content is a pittance. Oh, it's terrible. I'm waiting for the episode Aegis, which won't come out until September. We got music from Persona 4 and Persona 5 for, battles and stuff. There is no good actual battle music from Persona 5 in the Persona 3 game. Everybody knows Last Surprise. That's not in there.
It's kind of like, and there's one, I call it the cafe music is in there. But for me, the best description I can give you is imagine you get music that's going to say, oh, this is going to be music from Ghostbusters, but you don't get the main theme. You just get the Firehouse theme, and that's it. So you get one, you're like, cool. But then you're like, but where's the big meat and potatoes?
Right. Oh, that's great.
I don't know if they're going to add them later, but right now, the selection is...
It's $35 for the expansion pass.
Didn't they find that it's also it's basically just an unlock bit? The actual DLC is on the disc already?
Needless to say, they are getting review bombed appropriately this time because $35 and you can't even include a marquee song.
That's a lot.
It has nothing to do with licensing of the singer because she sings on the other track.
So yes, it's disgraceful. But aside from that, I've been enjoying things.
Oh, good. All right, Stephen, what about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I finally, with Chris, finished the Power Wash Simulator 40K. Oh, God, that last stage. That is that's a slog.
I'm up to the tank right now.
That was one of the biggest things we had to do in a while where there were so many nooks and crannies. So many.
I'm convinced that every time we finish a Power Wash section, the developers get upset that everybody finished it so quickly. So they try to add all these little corners and little bits and pieces like, oh yeah, let's see you finish this in one sitting, you bastards.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. So got through that. Helldivers 2 is an everyday thing. It's like it's like having some popcorn. If it's around, I'm gonna have some more and have some more and have some more. There is a new update, so you can get these new cutting edge things. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's 1,000 super credits, but remember, IGN, you can find these in the game. It is not microtransactions if you don't want them to be. So
I've already almost got the 1,000 just sitting there, and that's after I bought a couple things on the store before. So
yeah, and I
yeah,
was like swimming in super credits before, so I started just randomly buying stuff. But now I'm like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna do that, so I'm gonna save up from here on out, unless the armor's that cool.
yeah.
Um,
I think after we record, we'll probably play some tonight. We'll probably end up making the last bit we need, anyways.
yeah. Um, Another thing is now when I had to install an SSD and fix the fan on my wife's laptop, I made
Mm-hmm.
sure to watch tons of tutorials because it's not my laptop. I want to make
Right.
sure what I did to hers was fine. The Switch Lite I was given because the little kid, my nephew, uh, basically, I guess either dropped it so much or something, but it wouldn't charge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They thought it was the charge port or the battery. Turns out it was both.
Oh,
Um,
short it out.
and because anything I plugged into, even I have like a portable charger that I've used on my Switch before, but the lights immediately light up when it's plugged into something that it can charge. So the lights didn't light up until I replaced um, the USB charging port.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Christian got to be front and center to the chaos because one of the screws that would get rid of the old one got stripped
Oh.
really bad. So I tried almost everything, and finally I got frustrated. I took some nice pliers and I ripped that sucker right off the board,
Oh my god.
keeping the important parts of the board
Mm.
intact. Okay, it was gruesome, and even Christian was like, "Is everything gonna be okay?"
I wouldn't be able to watch this. I'd just be like, no, no.
Um, and then I was just like, "Didn't Jeremy say to solder this somewhere?" I'm just gonna put solder on whatever it looks like it should have solder. I think I
Oh
put
my
too
god.
much solder.
Don't put this on me.
I think I covered some of the board, so I was like, I'm gonna have to desolder tonight or tomorrow, just to try to fix it. Because then I was like, oh, okay, it's not charging still. Maybe it's the battery. Turns out it was the battery as well. And
Mm.
Nintendo, you must use some kind of Krypton glue because that thing I had to keep poking underneath just to get the battery out. And then people with regular switches were just taking it out like an ordinary battery. So switch lights are really hard to take the battery out. Um, and then suddenly while I was putting it back together again, it turned on, and I was just like, "Did I do it?" And then I got the dreaded like 2101 error that means something
Ugh.
on the board's not happy. I was like, "Okay."
Well, it depends where you put that
So
random solder that I did not suggest.
so I've cleaned off the board and I'm just going to desolder, take off the solder, and then see how it behaves, and then put a light amount of solder this time. So yeah, like I said, I'm learning as I go because it wasn't until I was just like, how do you remove a switch light battery that I saw that it was like a rip tear fun time.
So let me ask this on the USB-C port. Um, are you using a hot air workstation to do this, or are you trying to use an iron? Because there's multiple layers to a USB-C connector, and it's best to pre-tin your pads and then use the hot air to kind of line it up and then get it in there and then use the grounding connections. So,
I use a soldering iron
oh
and
boy.
solder and my table.
Well, rest in peace, the switch light.
It'll be fine. Some good old ingenuity, some spit. It'll be fine.
Why I have a
Um,
feeling this is going to be shipped to my house. Can you fix this? The
and
next
then last
Christmas, it'll be in there as a little note. Please fix for child.
And then lastly, I started aging this week, so I am 45 now. For anybody that asks or wonders, because sometimes see my missing hair. But
I'm working on it.
I went on a successful game hunt, found just about something for almost every system,
Nice.
as well as starting a collection of all the video game movies. Picked up everything from
Ooh,
Monster Hunter to
I haven't watched that yet.
I found the Dead Space Downfall anime, which I was happy to find that.
I heard that was good.
Because that helps you get the prequel to the series and stuff. So,
Wasn't that the
But yeah.
story for like the Wii game that they did?
yeah, this one was just like trying to. It was one of those animes that's like really grotesque too. So I was like, okay.
Gotcha.
But no, all in all, a good week.
Awesome.
Just not for the Switch Lite.
Yeah. We're gonna have to get you on camera and try and work on that. Don't just randomly put solder. I can just see you there going like these points. You're like, oh, I can make little lines with between these different random points. Let's just make
Connect
lines.
the dots. La la la. Connect the dots.
Yeah.
I
What's
only
wrong?
soldered where it made sense, but
I do
put a
this. I
little too
plug
much.
it in. I get sparks. It's like perfect for a kid's toy.
I put a little too much. That's all. And I had to shave the port so the USB would fit through the hole. Some things, I knew that when I explained my
This physically
my
hurts me,
trials and
man.
tribulations, that Jeremy would just be groaning inside to make. Oh no! It's already
Don't worry,
done.
electronics. You're safe here with me.
Hey, I come from the age where I modded a bunch of systems, and I was highly successful with all of those, except for the regular little PS1, because I found it had a failsafe that if the board got too hot, it shut off. It shut down. It became useless. And I was like, okay, I'll get that pre-modded. I'll never touch that again.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead then and jump into the news for this week. Yeah. So first off, I meant to talk about this last time, but we got distracted, ended up missing it last show. But we're about to have a Batman rant. So Zack Snyder, made Batman v Superman and all these other DC films, came out recently questioning why Batman doesn't kill, completely missing the point of the character. And yeah, I'm about to just rant on a comic book character. So anybody that reads Batman or understands Batman should understand the fact he does not kill is a key tenet. Yes, I understand the first handful of issues he had a gun. He did kill somebody. Hung the dude off a jet, actually, or a plane at the time. They didn't have jets back then. They were feeling him out, but since then, for a lot of stuff, it has become a ground tenet of the character, where it's been covered multiple times, both after the death of Jason Todd with the Joker, when he had the chance to kill him, and Jason Todd came back and was asking him why, you didn't kill anyone, doesn't do this stuff. Why did you not kill the Joker? And he poignantly put that if he crosses that line, God help him, he will never come back. He understands I could do this, but I will then never be able to stop. He would kill everybody. And yes, they have done Elseworld comics to show that whole fact. But what really pissed me off with Snyder is he keeps referring back to The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller classic, like seminal classic for Batman, of one of the better stories of Bruce Wayne getting older, Gotham getting so bad he finally retires, and then he gets so much worse he comes out of it in like his 60s to try and fight and do all this stuff. And the end of that, not to really spoil it for anybody, but if you get to watch the DC film, they did a good job. The two animated movies, it's one of my favorites they did. When he's facing with the Joker, even then, after everything that's going on, he did not kill him. He paralyzed him. He broke his neck just enough to paralyze him, but keep him alive. Nobody ever said Batman was down with, against breaking somebody or hurting anybody. They'll hurt you. And yeah, he probably has accidentally killed somebody. I'm not saying, but he's not purposely doing it. That's a whole different thing. That's the argument he's trying to make. But then in that book, the Joker pretty much commits suicide because everybody thinks he killed the Joker. So he finishes breaking his own neck to make it look like he did it. And he's like, the worst thing is you couldn't even do this. You couldn't even finish it because of that. So I'm really glad Snyder is not messing with Batman anymore, because that's kind of like Superman, like having him be all dark, gruff, and not caring or anything. Like, it goes against the tenet of what the character is. I didn't have a problem with him breaking Zod's neck for the whole Superman thing, because he pulled off looking really upset that he had to. He didn't have a choice. But Yeah, Batman doesn't kill. There's a reason for that. So it's not just because he doesn't want to repeat the violence of what caused him. He's just a 10-year-old kid stuck in the murder of his family, trying to stop that from happening anywhere else. So it makes no sense to become it. So, do you guys have any thoughts? I don't know how you are about Batman. I am very passionate on this one. Steven, go ahead.
I'm going to be the differing of opinion.
Oh, shit.
Um, in the fact that I see, in a way, whether he meant this or not,
Mm-hmm.
I see what Zack Snyder's talking about. And the fact of the matter is, every Batman movie keeps treading over the same thing, the same core part of Batman when we've gotten to the point where we have both Batman and his psyche, which is his Zero counterpart that can come out who does kill and quite violently and scares even the Joker. And they have a new one now where he was never Batman. He was always in a insane asylum, and he was put in an insane asylum since he was a kid because he killed his parents. So I think he's just saying that all the movies are kind of staying the course when there is so much storylines to be had, both in multiversal stuff, and some of these are very interesting. So it's kind of goes across the how many times will Uncle Ben pass away type of speech. And again, it's like, how many times can you tell this origin story? So it's good that the animated series are exploring those venues and adapting these graphic novels.
Right.
But I see his comment in more of a, hey, maybe like the next person who does a Batman film should finally deviate from that and create something different, because we're just going to be like, okay, you know, and I still go with the fact that he did kill in the very first Batman movie because he threw Joker off of the top.
Yeah, I mean, some of the people are trying to cover that, but that's still, you've got someone trying to interpret some of the characterizations of it, but the tenet of the character itself has been that rule of not killing. That's part of what it is. That's the same thing with like Green Lantern with willpower and fear and dealing with that, or other stuff. At some point, if you're trying to change the setup of how that is, you might as well just make a movie that's something else. Because what was it? They had Brightburn where they're like, what if Superman was a murderous killer kid? They didn't just say, okay, we're going to make Superman and have him going around and doing that. They made another movie that had a similar theme and had the kid doing this stuff and went off and did it without saying, oh, Superman needs to do that. They can make some other vigilante type character that if he wants him to kill and and show that stuff, they could do it without it actually being Batman, which
But
was
they're not
Rorschach.
pushing. But they're not pushing the envelope. The envelope's already out there. It's already been pushed. So it's not like what that person is doing will be something new. The stories are already out there to be told that way. With Batman as the murderous kind, we haven't seen it in a movie form yet, but we have seen the scariest version of Superman in Injustice,
And
the
we
comic
have some
book
of those with
series,
like
even before
Owlman.
the game.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to bring up Injustice as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of between both of you in terms of the idea, because the ethos of a character is important. That
Right.
ethos has to be built over years. And in order for that ethos to stay strong, you can have certain shows where they deviate from it.
Right.
It's basically the Marvel what if thing, because
Right.
then
It's
you'll say,
Elseworlds for DC.
right.
Yeah.
And, Injustice does count because that was a proper, tried and true version of Superman
Mm-hmm.
put through that Alters game that we were talking about, where,
Yeah.
someone finally got to him. And so I don't think these ideas are bad. The thing is, though, you need the core tenet of a character to show, like, basically the control subject.
Right.
Like, okay, if nobody knows that Batman is not supposed to be a lunatic in a sale asylum, show the regular Batman first, and then let's see the new one.
And I think that's the thing. Like I love the Elseworld stories. I like having those takes on it. Snyder's view of it is not we should be able to do different views of Batman. He's saying Batman himself, they should just make it where this is how he is, that he kills, that he does these things. they've done live action Batmans. Have done that. The Crisis on Infinite Earths on CW, when they had a live action version of him, the older one that they found out had actually killed all the heroes off. Yep, that was Batman, but doesn't have to be the Batman, for everything like that. I liked what they did with the Batman movie recently, where yeah, he was violent, he was rough, and trying to build that up, but didn't want to cross the line for killing. Was trying to get his footing and do stuff. And I loved Injustice. I liked how they did that, and even Batman in those fought against Superman. He still had that rule of no killing and not doing this stuff. Superman's the one that jumped over it and kind of went from there. That ended up with Dick Grayson getting killed. It was a whole back and forth. They even had a Elseworlds of Injustice where Batman did cross the line and kill the Joker, and then he turned himself into Arkham Asylum. Superman came to break him out, and he's like, no, I've crossed that line. I need to be in here. I'm fine with him exploring that. But that's, if Nintendo turned around and took Peach and changed her in some drastic way that was way off from how she normally is, and they were like, well, this is how it's going to be. I think we should change it to this. It's not a version of her. We're not talking about the game coming out in a week where she's playing all these different roles. But if they were like, no, Peach is now Daisy, how would you feel about that? Because you do not like Daisy. It doesn't feel right to you. And if
it's a different menu, because she used to be Princess Toadstool, where she didn't look like she looks now as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've got changes over time, but like if the Mario movie had come out and instead of how we got Peach in that, she's like, I'm going to go by Daisy, and they just kind of changed it for that. You're like, but that's not how Peach is. Even just remotely, it would feel weird to you, wouldn't it?
Do you know where we got Daisy? The other Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yep. So I thought that'd be an interesting discussion for that. Because we don't talk comics as much as we should. I love comic books.
Yeah, it's definitely, we could definitely fill an episode. It's just, yeah. I kind of see where he's going. Like, if he's talking about comics, then he's off his rocker. But if he's talking about movies, I'm on his side.
Well, I think for a lot of it though, like they wanted to form the DCEU, their extended universe for their thing. They're wanting that to be, Batman should be Batman, not some weird version of it. Like I know Marvel did for a lot of that stuff. There were changes to certain characters, but they stuck to the core tenets of a lot of them. Iron Man still had his drinking problems and stuff. They may not have shown it as much, but it was still there in the background. Spider-Man still being Peter Parker was still a kid. Yeah, he was tempted to kill, trying to do these things, but he was still following that tenet of Uncle Ben. And they've also covered in What Ifs and other stuff if Peter did go so far as to kill people and do those things. Like I see exploring those ideas, but they should not be the core ideas of how someone makes a character.
Plus, Zack Snyder already had his chance to remake John Carter, and it sucked. I forget what he called it, Rebel Moon or something.
Oh God, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. He
was
not happy.
I'm giving him a deep cut because every time I saw that trailer, I was just like, "Did Disney make this?" Because it looks like John Carter too.
John Carter should have got a sequel. I liked that movie. I thought it was interesting. So
enjoy Rebel Moon.
All right, so let's jump on to the next one. All right, so we've been talking so much about all these company, game developers closing down or layoffs and so forth, but today we get to actually talk about one buying itself up and becoming independent again. Saber Interactive has officially been sold off on its own from the Embracer Group, that conglomerate that's been just eating up everybody, for around reports of 247 million. Other reports are saying like 500 million. What it seems to be is the 247 is Saber's money that they put forward. The rest of it up to the 500 is investors putting money into that, I guess, into the company to kind of help buy their separation from that. But as Saber is leaving, they're taking a couple other studios with them. So 4A Games, who makes the Metro series. I always want to say Metroid. It's not that. Yeah, they have Nintendo. Zen Studios, who makes Zen Pinball, which, yes, I do play a lot. That is not where the name came from, but it's ironic.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, not sponsored. I am collecting pinball games, and my nickname is Zen. Nimble Giant, who does Star Trek Infinite, sorry. 3D Realms for Ion Fury. Sandbox Strategies, oddly enough, they didn't list any games they did. I meant to look that up. New World Interactive, who does Insurgency. Slipgate Ironworks for Graven. Madhead Games, Scars Above. And Fractured Bite, who did the Borderlands Legendary Collection. Funny enough, some of the companies that were under their umbrella for Saber got kept by Embracer. So Tripwire, who does Chivalry, Beamdog, who does Myth Force, Tuxedo Labs, who did Teardown, which I still need to get back and play since I've been enjoying that one. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Demiurge, who does
Sure.
Lucius. Aspire, who does Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. We'll talk about that in a minute. Snapshot Games for Phoenix Point, and 34 Big T Things, who does Redout. So they are still locked up with Embracer. Go ahead, Steven.
I'm going to say this right now, except for 3 studios, Embracer got the better deal.
Really?
The rest sounds like, and Chris, I think you'll get this, but the rest of the studios sound like studios you had to look for in Kensha Hall at E3, and you had to find their name on a door instead of their booth. Just saying.
Oh, Kensha Hall.
Sorry, guys, but I've never heard of some of you.
Hey, you like Zen Studios. You like the pinball
I said
games.
except for 3 studios, they got the bad deal.
Lord.
Well, I want to know, what are the 3? I'm guessing one of them is probably going to be 3D Realms.
It's 3D Realms, Zen Studios,
Studio.
and 4A Games. That's
Okay.
it. Everybody else is like the guy, the first line uttered in Guardians of the Galaxy. Who? Star-Lord, man.
Fun fact, the guy that said that is also one of his earlier roles. He was in Stargate. I saw him as one of the guards and was like, what the hell? Anyways. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they're doing this instead of closing them down like what happened to so many other studios. But I wonder where this is going to end up going. Like, how this deal is going to pan out, and who are they invested with? Like, that's going to affect what they can do or where they're going. So I don't know.
Welcome to the 10-cent family.
Oh my God. If that's the case, they've just walked right into hell on that one. Jesus. All right. You guys got anything else on this one before we move on?
Corporate free.
Oh, boy.
I guess we should have had her record something beforehand. That'd have been great.
Because that's what they are now. They're corporate free instead of corporate greed.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Embracer keeping a lot of the ones. I've still got to play Myth Force. I did get that one, so I haven't given it a shot yet. Battlefront, we'll talk about, but Aspire has already had issues with games that they've made. Like, I've heard more negative things with them than positive. Sometimes you get good remakes from them, but they seem to kind of mess it up. Redout is a good, like, F-Zero style game, I believe. Kind of a fast, like a racing type game. Tuxedo Labs, if that's the Teardown that I'm thinking of, the one that you and I played, Steven.
Yeah.
That is a really good one. I would definitely Embracer probably wanted to hold on to that. So yeah, other than Zen Studios, 4A and 3D Realms, you're not wrong. They got the better deal. So we shall see. But speaking of Aspire, so Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection launched recently, and it did not go well. There was a disturbance in the Force, and many, many Star Wars nerds were hurt by it. Over 10,000 players were waiting on 2 servers with a total of around 200 spots available for a while. So it was hours of people waiting just to be able to finally get into a match. A lot of times they'd spend entire rounds just waiting, watching the battle going on, and then the match would be over and they'd go on to the next one to then restart and hope they got into line. There was a number of graphical and audio glitches and other crashes and things that happened. I saw like entire sets of textures wouldn't load, or test textures would pop up, or the audio would be out of sync or not sound off, or the music would be weird. People would try and do local split screen, and then that would cause the game to crash. So they couldn't even locally play it with,
Or it would freeze if you connected 2 Xbox One controllers.
That's terrible. And then even if you did get online, there was no way at the current moment to actually play with your friends. Like, you could not party up with your own friends, and none of this has crossplay, which was already a problem. I felt, some of these should have at least had crossplay in some form. So, you guys have any thoughts on this Star Wars mess?
I know they at least responded to it, so it's one of those things like, do you
Responded.
guys know that there's problems? And they said there was a series of critical errors. They're not sugarcoating anything, saying that a lot of things went wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and they hope to kind of regain the trust because this is a marquee series. Because they said they also had the ability to create your own servers, and that wasn't in there
Mm-hmm.
either. I'd be okay if they kind of play the Mortal Kombat card where once everything is smooth, works great, and nobody has problems connecting,
Mm-hmm.
then like the recent Mortal Kombat, crossplay is being enabled. So it's like, okay, that's great.
That
So
would be good. Yeah.
so get one thing right and then go with the others. Like Helldivers was one thing because they didn't have as many fans in the first one, but now the word of mouth made everything go crazy.
Yeah.
But these guys knew what license they had, and somebody didn't flip enough switches. That's all.
Okay. Um, I think. Did you guys ever play this one back in the day? With the original PS2 and Xbox or PC releases of it?
I bought them. I bought them and put them on my shelf. I played the PS4 ones, and those got a little weird
Hmm.
because they were very battle passy Fortnite in terms of what you could unlock. So
Yeah, thankfully that
it,
went away later.
it kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
They're still worth playing now after they finally fixed everything, but that was a whole mess that EA caused on that one. So, all right. Well, hopefully these will be fixed because I really do want to play them. I wanted to order them when they came out. I had to wait. I'm kind of glad because I potentially might end up triple dipping on this set because if they're not crossplay, my old group that we used to play is on Xbox. I already have it on PC, and I'm supposed to get a discount to get those versions. And then it just feels like it should be on the Switch. Like I want to have it portably to be able to mess with and do things. The other weird thing, for some reason, all of these games together were only a couple of gigs originally, and then now they've ballooned from like less than 4 gigs to over 70 gigs, and everyone's wondering why. Like, what did you add? Even the textures would not be that much. It's just upresed. So, we'll see. All right. So, if you guys are familiar with the Strong Museum's World Video Game Hall of Fame, they have announced the 2024, I guess, the finalists to be voted on for this. And I'm going to read the list, and then I want to ask you guys which one you're voting for. I've already voted for mine. You can only pick one, is what they're doing. Basically, this vote, they'll tally it together, and then they have a group of people, a board that looks at this and votes into it, and the people's vote will count as one vote in that grouping. So, it's not like this is going to be the whole thing, but it's trying to make a stand in for it. So we have Asteroids, Elite, Guitar Hero, Metroid, Myst, Neopets, Resident Evil, Sim City, Tokameki Memorial, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Ultima, and You Don't Know Jack. So, Chris, we'll start with you. Which one out of these would be your vote?
It's a toughie, honestly.
Mm.
There are a lot of games that I consider for a Hall of Fame, but ooh,
Are you eyeing that Neopets?
honestly, I'd probably pick Asteroids.
Okay. Stephen, what about you?
I think for kind of properly pioneering female protagonist and to also honor its creator, I'm going to go with Metroid, obviously.
I voted on Metroid as well for purely personal reasons. It's a series I've always
But
loved.
I don't know if Gunpei Yokoi ever got his proper recognition
Mm-hmm.
for all he's created, and just like the landmark he did. So I think it holds like a special part in the timeline as well. I do want to add that the voting ends on the 21st.
Yes.
Basically the top 3 that get the most public votes will be submitted on a ballot, and will join the other top 3 submissions from members of the International Selection Advisory Committee. The public will collectively act as one member of the committee. So So vote while you can, at least until the 21st, guys. It is museumofplay.org.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, vote for Metroid.
We're not trying to skew this at all. It Chris is not wrong. This was a very tough decision because all of these games have got such a huge importance to gaming over, our lifetimes. Because Asteroids was one of those, early arcade games that kind of really brought everybody in, was one of the big ones for the old Atari, like so many memories with that one. Um, Guitar Hero was the one that pioneered the music games. Like, it wasn't pioneered so much as creating them because they existed well before that, but it was the most popular, like a whole movement for how that picked up, and is still affecting how gaming is now, even with like the Fortnite stuff where they're kind of bringing Guitar Hero back in its own way. Myst was one of the ones I strongly considered. Um, the other one being Resident Evil, just because Myst I remember as the big first PC game that really caught my attention in regards to like storytelling and showing stuff. Like, I saw Doom and stuff around, but that was just like arcade style shooters to me. But
Yeah, I'm willing to take the hate from the fans, but how in the fuck did Neopets get on there?
I think that one was in regards, like, there's still a community around it. Apparently, it was one of those early online.
Then give it to Club Penguin or Roblox. What's Neopets doing there?
Well, Neopets started it. Like, the other ones came because of it. It's kind of started that whole genre of it. I think it's one of those that for us, we're not of that generation, so it seems kind of weird to us. But for a lot of people, that hits like Pokemon does for some people our age. That started a lot of that stuff. I'm not familiar with the Tokameki Memorial. I think someone said it was a puzzle game, but I haven't really messed with it too much. I've lost years of my life to SimCity. And also the lives of many, many people, as every disaster I caused or messed up just happened. Sorry for all those fake people. I've murdered you all. So
blame Bowser.
Well, the Super Nintendo version I did play a lot, yes. All right, so go vote, get your choices for that, and we'll have to go back sometime and talk about and look at what's already in the Hall of Fame. I'm kind of curious what their whole listing is, what their thought process is. All right, so before a long while back, we talked about Double Dragon Gaiden of Rise of the Dragons. Really fun game you guys talked me into getting. Absolutely loved it. A lot of fun to play. But it had one glaring flaw that was just so disappointing. And that's the fact it was local co-op only. I'm glad they support that, but my kids didn't really want to play it. My friends weren't coming over to play it. I couldn't really take it anywhere half the time. It kind of killed the purpose of it, so I stopped playing it. But then the other day, Steven popped up with some good news. So, Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons, will be getting an online co-op mode for free during the update on April 4th of this year. They're also adding in 3 new characters, a couple different modes, including a versus fighting mode, like boss rush, all kinds of stuff that are being added to it. And I do like the fact that it is all free. So yeah, we're going to have to play this, right?
Yeah, one of the characters I think is from Sacred Stones,
Mm-hmm.
the third Double Dragon. The other 2 characters I don't know just yet. I just know they're probably other enemies turned helpful.
Yeah, that's the only 2 they didn't name or show. They just showed their outline. So yeah. Who knows?
So I'll be interested in those because the game was a lot of fun to play. It definitely is more strategic. You don't just go in hitting everybody, whatever. Chris and I, when we played it, we had to make sure we got our combos right and we got as many coins as possible.
Awesome. So I like seeing games get these kind of updates, and I'm not even like I was glad to get the physical copy because I wanted it complete on there, but I'm not too worried about the online being an update, just like it was with was like Doom 2016 on the Switch. You'd get the actual game on the cartridge for all the single player, and then you would download the multiplayer stuff. Well, that's fine because if they don't have online, you're not going to be able to use it anyway. So let that be the part that's not there if you have to do it. I mean, it sucks that some of the characters won't be on there, won't be complete for that, but at least the game is there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be jumping into that one and beating the crap out of people here shortly. All right, on to our last story for the night. Well, let's get political. So the U.S. is pushing for a ban on TikTok. Pretty much any of the use of it, having it on any of the cell services or other stuff in the United States, unless the parent company, ByteDance, agrees to sell itself to another company within 6 months. The House recently passed a bill in 4 days, no less, because they can never get anything done, but all of a sudden they can ban TikTok in 4 days. This would ban the service if the sale, like I said, is not sold within 6 months. It has to pass the Senate now, but President Biden has stated he would be willing to sign this in if it passes there. I don't use TikTok myself. It's actually something my job does not allow for security reasons on any devices that we use our stuff. I've watched videos and stuff on there on occasion for other things. Of course, Steven, you've used it and sent me stuff a lot. So I'm going to start with you on your thoughts on this one, because I know you're shaking your head.
I've got just some big things to say.
Okay, go for it.
I don't have a huge discussion over this because there's a lot of that's already been said.
Mm-hmm.
But the two things I just want to remind, especially who wants to sign it, political suicide. 170 million users. This is not something you want to even consider right now. And I know this was a bipartisan bill created,
Which doesn't help.
but right now, the people interested in buying are not the correct people. They are not on the right side of things.
Yep.
And the last thing I'll say is the latest person who says he's interested in buying TikTok is Bobby Kotick. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, we really don't need Bobby Kotick in charge of any social
We already
media
have
anything.
we already have another idiot billionaire in charge of X. So
yeah, and
we don't need one for this one.
And that's been nothing but a problem this whole time for everything. Chris, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm surprised that it's gotten this far, honestly. There's a lot of misinformation involving TikTok, but at the same time, I can see why the top brass would be worried because, as I've seen in so many memes, nobody's allowed to spy on us but me and maybe the boy. Google and X are supposed to spy on the American populace, not someone outside America. So clearly they're upset. That's our job.
I mean, there's other stuff they're trying to push through and ban. Like for a lot of my job, I fly drones, and the ones that I usually fly are DJI drones, and they're trying to push to have those banned for being used in the United States. Which that's one of the largest drone makers in the world. Like right now, you can't already use it for government uses, but even for public and private use, that would ruin a lot of people's livelihoods just right off the bat. All the money I've invested in my drones that I use, I'd have to toss them. I wouldn't be able to use them. It's literally thousands of dollars I've spent just recently that would just go away. And I've tried getting drones that are not from DJI, and no one's been able to step up and make any decent ones. So that's a problem. Go ahead, Steven.
And the problem with a lot of these is everybody's taking the WB CEO approach. They haven't used it, they haven't experienced it, and they don't know what they're talking about. They just hear what other people tell them, and they go from there. I feel that if you're going to put any kind of ban on drones, it should be terms of airspace or locations.
Which they
Like,
do.
hey,
Yeah.
if you're in Illinois per se and you're near an army base, hey, you're not allowed to do drones within blah 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 area,
Mm-hmm.
and they have permission to basically say like you're gonna get fined or just shoot it down. So I'm okay with putting that kind of restrictions, but to just say like I can't look at the roof of my house is a little weird.
Yeah, and those restrictions already exist. I live not too far from an Air Force base, and there's other secured air zones that show up. Like when you launch the drone, you turn everything on, it checks your area, and you can see the geo-fenced areas of where you're not allowed
Oh,
to go. So that's already there. That's not
so the
even a problem.
protection's already there. So what they're doing now is just overreach. That's all.
Yeah. Um, I mean, because at what point does that stop? Because also, if they're trying to block TikTok for they're believing it's an outside country being able to spy on or say stuff like we're
It's
posting stupid
whataboutism.
videos.
It's a big box of whataboutisms and no proof anywhere.
Because if it gets banned in the US, that's not going to stop the service from running anywhere else in the world, which, I mean, there have been a lot of people that are hoping, hey, if it does go, we'll finally have a social media without people from the United States. Because apparently, yeah, we're assholes. And a lot of the world thinks that. And sadly, a lot of us have proven that, especially with some of the people that own some of these social media platforms that are assholes.
It's just like you're not being broad. You're not going after the other social media. Why pick on one? It just doesn't make sense. And you can have your reasons, but overall, you're just giving one now all the ability to kind of just rip off all that they do and just be like, oh well, we don't have this supposed dark overlord behind us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest argument for this is not so much of trying to ban TikTok, is they need to push more laws and other things for privacy, like actual, informational security for individuals versus trying to just blanket ban stuff, thinking that'll fix it without actually solving the logistical issue of your data, how that's handled. Uh, yeah. So
You remember how many leaks we got with the previous administration? How about they take care of those kind of things first before they start bothering an app where people are baking and cooking and giving out hacks and funny Helldiver videos. So it's like, leave us alone.
yeah, like I said, I haven't had a chance to really explore it too much just because I can't use it for work and I haven't dove into it. But just because I'm not using it much doesn't mean that place should not exist. Not everything is meant for everyone to use. I'm not a skater. I'm not going to sit here and say skate park should go away. They have a purpose. People use it. People enjoy it. Let them do that. It's okay. They're not hurting anyone other than possibly themselves. Um, yeah.
You know what needs to go away
Hmm.
is DLC from Atlas. Just make complete games at the end.
Well, they make complete games. They just lock a bunch of it behind codes on
Every
their disk.
Christian and I have agreed that every single game they've been making so far that is part of the SMT Persona storylines, they're always like, can we make it better? Let's release another one.
They're iterative to a fault.
We got Reload, Golden, and Royal.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement. TikTok, love it or hate it. I don't think it needs to be just blanket banned. If you have security issues, address the security issues and look into that. You don't just block everything. Because there's been a lot of discussions about, some of them are going after this because people are communicating things that they don't want communicated because they're not anything illegal, but they're having different political views or other stuff like that as well, because this is in a large part a different generation from them that
It
is
is.
using it as a communication tool and way just like we did for other stuff too.
It's the last thing I heard from some creators and influencers as well from TikTok was it's because of the generation that doesn't get it or understand it completely or use it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a disconnect that's causing a rift. Recently, Stephen Colbert kind of poked fun at it and supported getting rid of it. And most of TikTok is now going against Colbert, saying, we stood with you when you had a writer's strike.
Mm-hmm.
We supported you even though everybody was contacting us for projects that we are not part of any guild, so we would have made lots of money, but we decided to stay with you with the writer's strike, and we could have not have. And the fact that we stood with you and now you're stabbing us in the back is just causing this disconnect. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Colbert, you have a TikTok account.
I'm wondering how much of that he actually runs, or if that's just
Yeah,
somebody
but
running
it's
it
just
for
like
him.
you can't say like I hate that thing, but my name's on it. It's like your name's on it.
Yeah, this, like I said,
So
I don't
it's a
use it,
mess.
but
What I'm just hoping with the protests and such that they do the right thing, because this is definitely not the time you want to do anything like that. You don't want anything sweeping like that this year at all.
And I think a lot of it's like fear mongering for that as well. You're just like, oh, this is run by others, the other, so we need to be worried about that and concerned about it. And once again, look at who's running X. We know who that is, and that should be more of a concern. Like, that's not going well.
Like, look what happened to Joe Lieberman. He went off the deep end with fear mongering, and then he got disbarred because he started just like, these games are gonna create killing machines. Like, yes, we've always wanted to drop a tank on a car out of the sky and just go around Grand Theft Autoing everybody. Oh, the
Yeah.
only thing that did is it showed how evil. Sorry, guys, how evil Nintendo is when they just threw Sega under under the bus, and we're driving the bus as well.
I'm still waiting on that April Fool's game that I purchased from Limited Run to show up, so I
And
can.
the fact that, what's his name, Lincoln was just like, it will never, Night Trap will never be on a Nintendo console.
And now I'm waiting for the video version of it on Game Boy Advance, which will be great. And I already have it on Switch too, because that was just too funny not to get.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap up this surprisingly shorter episode tonight. I guess we just kind of a light news but serious news day. But let's go into our big question. All right, so the big question we pulled from the list because we're not really coming up with much this week, but I'm kind of curious about this one. So, how many times has the answer to what's your favorite game of all time changed over the years? Steven, let's start with you.
I'm gonna say it's changed once.
Really? Okay.
So growing up, no, I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it changed twice. So when I just had a Commodore 64, even though it wasn't a game per se, I played Little Computer People, which is kind of like pre-Sims. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely couldn't control this person. You had to let them do everything, and you had to plead with them through text to do stuff, because there's only certain words he was okay with. So that
Mm-hmm.
was my favorite until we had the NES, and surprisingly, none of the Nintendo titles really, they were fun, but they never became my favorite game of all time. And then you can't see it behind me, but Mendel Palace, Game Freak's, like, one of their first few games that came out, just surprised me with its variety and eclectic group of characters, and that stayed with me through Genesis, Super Nintendo, um, PC in general. Then this happy little Sega CD game that thankfully I had exchanged this horrible game called Panic for it. Yeah, roll your eyes in the back of your head. Keep rolling.
Panic is a wonderful game.
Anyway, Snatcher came
I
along.
think I know which one Panic is.
Snatcher came along, changed my life, and there hasn't been a game to top it yet. There's just, I would say that Final Fantasy VI came this close, but Snatcher, man, it just instills emotions that, while I do get them in Final Fantasy VI, they're not as strong, and just, I could just sit back and watch people play Snatcher on replay. So
I'm working on it.
I don't know if it's gonna change anytime soon. I can't wait to see if somebody can beat it. Like, not just the Snatcher game itself, but just give me a new favorite game of all time.
Okay. Chris, what about you?
Honestly, it's tough for me to pick a one favorite game of all time always,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just influenced by so many. Usually it's a top 3 or a top 5, and even then it's going to be in various genres. But if we're talking over time, essentially when Capcom arcade games started being a thing, then my favorites started being Street Fighter, Darkstalkers, Marvel Superheroes, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's good to slowly acclimate yourself to what you think is a better game over time. But of course, everyone's got a different thing.
Okay. So for me, this is a question I think that's been changed a lot over my life. Because I'd be like, oh, when I was a kid and I got Super Mario Brothers, like, oh my god, this is my favorite game, and then I'd get something else later on, and then that would become my favorite game at the time, and I was always kind of more in the moment. And it took until I was a little bit older to start looking back at the whole genre of different games I've played to kind of realize, okay, this one sticks with me a little bit more than this one does, or this one affected me in this way. And it started kind of whittling down which games I would put on this higher pedestal as it kind of built up, you know. And for the longest time, it would be something like, yeah, I was that guy that like absolutely loved Ocarina of Time and a lot of games like that until it finally came back to the one that's become my favorite. That if I had to pick one game, I would always choose, and that's Super Metroid. Because I will still go back to that game and I will play it, enjoy it. I love the music, the art style, the story behind it, how it controls, everything about it. You know, all the memories and everything attached to it, and it's held up no matter which time I've played it, which is a big thing as well. Because a lot of older games you go back to, and unless they get remakes or remasters or things, they kind of feel dated or don't work as well. Super Metroid to this day, I would still argue would fit in if they just release that on Switch as an actual cartridge or whatever, and they're like $60, I'd be like, okay, here you go. I'll be that guy. Don't care. Maybe give me some art books and stuff with it. So it has changed a lot over the years, but it's kind of solidified as I got older to be that one. So I don't have a number of how many times I've changed it, but I just, yeah. Go ahead, Steven.
I just want to add the most annoying question
Mm-hmm.
to get from your common people who see your games.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite game? And you say it. And sometimes you say it changes like you did.
Right.
But then sometimes, like me, you say it and I don't know what answer they were expecting.
Yeah,
Were they
what about
expecting
this one?
Pac-Man? But I'll say something and then they'll be like, okay. Like, why'd you ask if you don't understand what I'm going to say?
Maybe they were
Right.
hoping you'd say, I don't know, I like a whole bunch, or I don't know. Who
I
knows?
like asteroids. Like,
It's a fun question to ask, but it's an almost impossible question to ask because
but it goes upon, for me, it's the right person has to ask it. If it's a fellow gamer or somebody who at least owns a system,
mm-hmm.
you are fully entitled to ask for it because then you've at least played a handful of games either at somebody's house somewhere or something. But when you're just the common, I don't want to say common, but when you're just like your sports guy, your you know outdoorsman, family parent, anything like that, and then they ask you and you say it and they're like, okay. I was like, are you gonna go look it up or did you just want
Just
or
curious.
so like my mother would be like, what's your favorite game? And I'll be like, Snatcher. And she's like, okay.
Yeah, not
And
everyone
that's the
gets
end of
that
the conversation because she
because
has no
even
idea what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
Maybe,
because
I'm
oh, go ahead.
guessing she was hoping you'd say something that she would recognize. Then she'd be like, oh, that's a great game.
I love Wii Sports. It's like,
Exactly.
it's fun, Mom, but I'm not going to say a game you know. I'm not going to say the Pac-Man or the Pokemonsters or something.
And
No.
that's the other thing people need to realize. Like, yes, we're talking about we have our favorite game, and that's the one that means something to us, which should be a personal thing. Like I love Super Metroid. Yes, there are better games on for technology and larger stories and all kinds of other stuff, but that is the game that just sticks with me for all these different reasons. That also does not mean other games are not good. Like people take that assumption of, oh, this is your favorite, you must not like this. No, that's not the case.
Yeah, and
Like
unless you have similar tastes, it's not even a good icebreaker because now you're really confused about the person
I like
because you've
asking
never
people
heard of the
that
game.
because, like you said, whatever their response is, I'm going to show interest in that because I'm curious what is the reason behind it. Not because I'm questioning you, but I like to know what is it about this that draws it into because you're going to see this game maybe in a different light than I did, and I'm curious to see what that is. Like I'm looking forward to playing Snatcher, not so much as going through the story, but because I'm looking forward to your excitement and you sharing your love of this and kind of trying to see it through your eyes as well as what I'm doing. I know that's corny, but I like that. That's great.
I know I'm going to have to be very straight faced on some parts because I'm going to be like bursting at the seams to say something and I can't. I'm going to be like a Lord of the Rings fan watching Lord of the Rings. I'm like, I want to tell him that Aragorn breaks his foot.
I was about to make the same joke.
But I can't. Like, you have to be that person. You have to be like, I'm going to ask them what they thought of it at the end.
And I get that. I mean, that happens with certain stuff, but like I enjoyed like Chris, hearing you talk about like your love of Darkstalkers and that series and those things, because I really like Darkstalkers, but you have a view of it way more involved and you're, digging into the different parts of it. I love that stuff. Like that's a fun conversation, but people need to be in the right mindset and ready to kind of work with that answer, not just assume you're going to have the same thing and hoping, oh, well, we like the same thing, so that'll be great. You're
It
both into
depends on
gaming,
whether it's actual curiosity or an icebreaker, I think.
I think if it's handled correctly, it could be both. I mean, I've
Yeah,
talked to people and
I'd
done
rather
that.
it be used to maybe like get what kind of things they like.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're trying to buy them a gift or you're trying to just understand them more, maybe then you can go look up the game and be like, oh, this person likes Cyberpunk, which is the farthest from the truth for me. But so
Well, I
that
mean,
game will just confuse you. But I get it. It's just it changes per person who asks you, and
I think as an icebreaker, I would rather somebody ask me what my favorite game is rather than someone just go, "What kind of games do you like?" And it's like, boy, that is a broad
I will give you an
conversation.
example that when I first started my job, what they would do is put a team together
Mm.
and then put a huddle and they would do an icebreaker question.
I hate those.
And the leader would usually put it together. But this time I got to see how an icebreaker could fail miserably. And they basically asked, what's your favorite Pop-Tart flavor? And I can tell you out of the 14 of us, at least 11 had never had a Pop-Tart, so it didn't work very well.
If you've never had a Pop-Tart, just say s'mores. You'll be correct.
Excuse me, Wildberry.
You
Don't
still
ask
have
Chris.
Wildberry.
I don't think I've had Wildberry.
We know it's the frosted chocolate one. Come on.
Or peanut butter. Peanut butter, frosted peanut butter is really good.
Well, and this is how the show's going to end. No, we can no longer agree on Pop-Tarts. We must never speak again. Seriously, that's s'mores. I haven't had a good Pop-Tart in a while, actually. So
It's not good for diabetics. Nope.
No, it's not. Which is probably why I haven't had
70 grams of carb for one.
Yeah. Do I want to be healthy today? Nah.
Or do I want to pass out involuntarily?
How bad do I need this foot? My feet are fine, by the way, people. No, I will not send you pictures of it. Wow. Okay, I think it's about time we wrap this up. It's gotten off the rails.
Welcome to Zenspath Entertainment Network. We're toes above the rest. Okay.
Oh man.
Sorry, I told the line there.
You're just digging in with this. Anyways.
Digging my feet in, yeah.
So, as usual, if you want to communicate with us, you can find us online over on Twitter at Zenspath Podcast, or you can pretty much find any of our contact information over on zenspath.com in the contact us section, or in the notes of this episode. I've got everything listed down below. If you're watching the video version of this, check down below, leave us a comment, a like, share the video with people, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to, see how fast we can get to 1,000 people and kind of go from there. If you're watching this and you'd like to listen to it, you can look for the Zenspath Entertainment Network podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you find your podcast. Find us there, leave us a 5-star review, thumbs up, or whatever they have, and leave us an actual statement as to what your review is. We would love to be able to hear from you and talk about it. And if we get more of those, we could talk about them on the show. Beyond that, I've been your host, Jeremy Powers, and this has been episode 122, and we're out. Peace.
Why doesn't Mario kill?
He does. So many dead Goombas.
So many. And turtles. Also, s'mores Pop-Tarts are better.